Hey everyone, welcome to another walkthrough video of Excel Wonders. We're going to talk about one of my favorite templates, the meal planner. It does so much more than meal planning, as you'll see in a second, but this is the perfect template for anyone looking to plan their meals, look at the macro and micronutrient information of their meals and what they eat, and overall live and plan a healthy life. When you open this template, you should see the section called My Stats, which actually, for the purposes of this video, we'll go through at the end. Let's start with settings. I wanted to start with settings because as you start using this file for the first time, this is where you should start. You should input some key information like your first name, last name, gender, date of birth, some dietary restrictions, which actually, in full disclosure, it's for information only. They will not have much impact on the meal plan itself, as you'll see in a second. You also can select the activity level, the goal, whether to maintain, lose, or gain weight. You can put the height and weight. You can choose either to use the European system or the American system. And finally, I also have here some other settings that will play a key role in determining, for example, your macronutrient ratios, your calorie needs, etc. But they already have some numbers inputted. What you can do is you can change those numbers if you want to. Now, word of disclosure though, the numbers that are currently here are based on some scientific research and other materials that led to the numbers that you see here. Now, if you want to change, you can change, but if you don't change, at least these numbers are sound. Let's scroll up and let's go to the meal planner. As you can see, the meal planner has this table form, and when you look at the rows, they're basically the meals like lunch, breakfast, dinner, etc. And then inside of each meal you can put the foods. I'll show you in a second how you can do this. In columns you have the different macro and micronutrients, and if you scroll all the way to the right, you see all the vitamins, all the minerals like calcium, iron, etc., all the nutrients that you can think of. Now, if you want to create a new meal plan, you can, because you actually can have more than one. Right now, I have one, but for example, let's create one from scratch. You click here, New Meal Plan. You give a name to it. Let's put, for example, bulking. Confirm, yes. And here it is. It shows empty. So currently has no meals and no foods. Actually has one that we can add here. So for example, let's start with breakfast. And inside of breakfast, I can add multiple foods. So you first select breakfast, and then you click on this button, New Food. And in New Food, you select through the drop-down, you can select a lot of things. So for example, let's select milk. For example, milk 2% fat. We can select, let's say, some apples as well. Where's apples? Here it is. And a few other things. You can manage this table however you want. You can move things around, reorder them. You can add new meals like this. I just added 2 more meals, and inside of meals you can add new foods. You can delete both meals and foods. So for example, if I click here, it deletes that meal. I will delete this one again. But then something very important is currently you see everything in 0. And the reason why is because not only need to select the food, but you also need to put the quantity in grams that you're consuming of that food. So for example, milk, let's put 100. And in apples, let's do, for example, 70. That is very important because obviously the calculation of your macronutrients and micronutrients depend on the quantity of the food you're taking. And once you input both the name of the food and the quantity, you should see all the information. You should see it by food, by meal, and also in total. And the total number is probably the most useful because it allows you to see how much you're consuming every day of each single nutrient. Now, as I told you, you can have multiple meal plans. For example, I created this one bulking, but if I wanted to see the one I had before, I select it, and here it is. I'm back to the one I had before. Now, if I want to go back to bulking, I click bulking, and it shows the one that I had bulking. If I want to change the name or any information, I can as well. I click here, Edit Meal Plan. I can put, for example, bulking 2. I click yes, and it changed. And what I can also do is to delete. I click delete, and it's gone. Now, key question: where does this list come from? The list of foods you see here is actually something you can manage as well. So if you go here in Food Discovery, you have 3 tabs here, and this second tab, List of Foods, contain all the foods that you will see available for selection in the meal plan. And this is very useful because you can already see in advance some of the foods you have here and some of the nutrient information as well. And all the nutrient information is by 100 grams. So that is very important too. You can add new foods, you can edit also the information, and you can delete, although I would use the deletion with caution. The other two tabs you have here is you have the USDA database. This is actually publicly available. You can go to the USDA website and download it, which is what I did to build this tool. And so I inserted all of these. There's thousands of foods here, as you can see. But if there's any of the foods here that you see interesting, if you would like to pass to the list of foods, because remember, the list of foods is the one that is used for the meal plan, not the USDA database. The USDA database is only for information. You can actually select the food, for example, this one, acorn stew, and you click transfer to list of foods. You confirm all the information that is in here. You can also make changes, especially on the name. I don't recommend making changes here on the nutrient information because, again, this comes from the USDA. And you click confirm, and you will see that food in list of foods. Let's actually do that. Let's, for example, select this one, click transfer, confirm, yes, it's creating, and here it is. And now what you can do is, or you can delete if you regret it, for example. I click here, delete, you confirm, and it's deleted. Finally, food discovery is a very, very interesting page as well because it allows you to select, it allows you to visualize a search of top foods for a specific ingredient. Like, for example, I want to see the top 10 foods with the highest or lowest, let's select highest, levels of, let's say, protein. If I click get results, it's going to give me a table with the top 10 foods, and it shows here the nutrient as well. Not surprisingly, branched chain amino acids is number one because it's 100% protein. But you can do that for any nutrient. You can do that with highest or lowest, and you select a maximum of 20 foods. It's super, super useful. And speaking of useful, if you go back to the page where we started called My Stats, you can see a lot of useful information as well. This first part is actually the data that you have already inputted in settings. But if you scroll below, you'll see some interesting information like your BMI, your BMR, and your total daily energy expenditure. I will not explain what any of this is. You can actually read the descriptions here. But this is super useful information. If you go to macronutrient analysis, what you first need to select is the diet. Remember, you can add multiple diets. I had the diet bulking, which I deleted, but if I hadn't deleted, I would see it here on the dropdown as well. But as you select the diet, it will show you, based on the information you added, your goals and everything, what is the target of calories, carbs, protein, fat, and fiber you have, and what is your current diet giving you. And it also shows a variance to see which nutrients are you up or down. And this is super useful because then you can go back to Meal Planner and make some changes to the diet. The objective is to have the variance as close as possible to zero. You can also have a deeper look into carbs and calories. Right now it's selected as fats, but you can check here carbs, and it changes. And finally, you have the ratios. So in macronutrients, you have a recommended ratio, which is based on what you have added in settings. So if I go back to settings, you will see here, these are the ratios based on the goal you selected. And back to My Stats and micronutrient analysis, you have here the current ratio. So this is the current ratio for the test 2 diet you had. And you are able to compare both in percentage and in absolute values and in calories, protein, carbs, and fat. Super, super useful. And finally, you have the micronutrient analysis, which again does the exact same thing as macronutrient analysis. It shows you all the nutrients here. And the interesting thing is you can select different ones, and as you select, it will show you some key information that I researched and I added, and I also have here the references for not only the values or the information you have here, but also the values on the target that normally depends on your age and gender. But you have here the target, you have here what your diet is giving you, and again, you're giving you the variance. What it also gives you is what are the micronutrients that you're currently lagging or meeting the daily required needs. And you can see here through this cross or this check mark. Now, finally, one important disclaimer is that this information in the Excel is only for information and is not intended for medical or nutritional advice. You should absolutely consult a healthcare professional for personalized health and nutrition guidance. We do not guarantee the accuracy or completeness of this information, and we are not responsible for any outcomes based on its use. Again, this is only for informational purposes. You should do your own research and make your own choices. But that's pretty much it. That is the meal planner.